It's back to school time. Are you saving for a child's upper education? It can still be one of the best ways we help our children achieve their dreams, but it has never been more expensive. Today I have an expert joining me to help go through the different ways we can plan effectively to save for our children's futures without sacrificing our own financial goals. Stay tuned. Welcome back to another episode of Escape the Clock, where I, the author of the book, brings you strategies to crush debt, build wealth that lasts, and give yourself the option to leave the 9 to 5. Today, we are talking family, in particular, the rising cost of higher education in the United States. These climbing costs are creating significant student debt, weighing down young adults and the parents who are trying to support them. Tuition at public universities have risen more than 30% in the last decade, and the average student graduates with more than $30,000 in debt. Across the U.S., families collectively owe over $1.7 trillion in student loans. Yet, only about a third of families take advantage of tax-advantaged 529 plans, and billions of dollars in Pell Grant money goes unclaimed every year. According to Sally May, nearly 77% of parents end up paying at least part of these costs, and 50% end up covering the entire bill. That leaves families stretched thin and students walking away with debt that can take decades to repay. So families are looking for better options. So how do we ensure that our plans are best aligned to cover these expenses without sacrificing our greater financial freedom goals? Well, that's exactly what today's guest is here to help us figure out. My guest today is Rebecca Irey, founder of Blue Skye Financial. She helps families and entrepreneurs cut through financial confusion and build tax-smart strategies for real wealth. As a mom of 7, Rebecca brings a grounded, values-driven approach to money, focusing not only on numbers, but on legacy, freedom, and dignity. Welcome to the podcast, Rebecca.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
I'd love to hear more about you, including what got you interested in financial planning, especially with a family focus.
Absolutely. So I was raised, and I think many of us were, I was raised on a ranch in South Dakota. Many of us weren't raised like that, but my parents didn't plan for my college. My grades got me into college, and then I lived 4 years on ramen and Mountain Dew, right? And as I had children, I knew that I didn't want them to have that experience. So we try to plan, we try to save and do better for our children than what our parents did for us. And they did the best they could. But my dad was a rancher. He didn't know a FAFSA form from, that wasn't his expertise. And many of us, as we plan for our kids' college education, we don't really even know the right questions to ask. And there are some really beautiful options. But as the mom of 7 and now grandma to 6, the world is a lot different than when I grew up and maybe when you grew up too. So I think taking into account the difference of the world today and where we grew up, as well as the different options that are available, can really actually put our kids under the burden of debt and us too, or really set them up for a solid financial foundation, depending on how we do it and what financial tools that we utilize to do that.
Yeah, I know in my case, I think my experience with school borrowing was my first adult experience with debt. And I know many of us start with that massive amount of borrowing because, we are trying to start our journey and we don't have income. And so we start with borrowing. And I know this is timely. It's on a lot of people's mind right now because we just started another school year. Many families are maybe worried about upcoming college costs if they're thinking of sending kids to higher education in the future, and that can create a lot of anxiety. And I mentioned tuition; it's really skyrocketed in 20 years, nearly up 180% in public universities. And the average student, I mentioned, with that $30,000 in debt and the $1.7 trillion in student loans. And a lot of this ends up on the people raising the kids, trying to finance that, or the kids taking that debt themselves. So, Rebecca, when you sit down with families, like what's like the first misconception do you normally notice that they have about paying for college, and how do you start to help them?
So we kind of need to back up one step, right? When I sit down with families, they have kids probably in elementary school. Sometimes we're waiting until high school. That's not ideal, but they feel the pressure of providing for college education. And I always try to take people back one step. As the mother of seven, when I was a kid, it was an assumption. You're going to go to college. That's just what we do. We graduate high school and we go to college. That's it. Our world is a whole lot different place now. And I think there are a lot of parents that I talk to that make the assumption that their children are going to go to college. And many of my clients have been unfortunately disabused of that notion by their children, right? So they're not, they want to take a gap year, or maybe they just don't know what they want to do yet. So they don't go to college right away. They may not go at all. Of my seven children, four of them attended trade school or became entrepreneurs and didn't go to your classical 4 year university, college or university. They wanted to do their own thing. And so supporting our kids, unlike our parents, doesn't always mean 100% of the time we're going to pay for college. So as my children came up, I started having discussions with them in middle school saying, okay, well, what do we think we want to do? I had one daughter who wanted to be a photographer. Okay, well, let's pay for photography school so you have the skills. It's still school, but it's not that kind of a debt that would be a 4 year university. So I think acknowledging the world is a different place. And that college education, it used to be if you didn't have a bachelor's degree, you're not going to get a quote unquote good job. That's not how it is anymore. You can get a solid, well paying position without a college degree. Now, as parents, do we want that? No. No, we want our kids to go to college. Of course we do. But our kids are not us, right? And they have their own plans. So I think when I meet with parents, we need to design flexibility into our plans for our children so that when they're old enough to have a voice in what their future is going to be, we're prepared for that. And maybe it's higher education and maybe it's not, but we still want to set them up with a debt-free future. So how do we do that?
Yeah, I definitely want to ask you about the debt free part, I'm glad you took that step back because it made me think a little bit about my personal situation because I have an 18-year-old and a 15-year-old. My 18-year-old is leaving to college in 2 weeks. And so, the college route was something we planned for him. And, that's kind of that plan's going the way we intended it to. But my daughter, my 15-year-old, she's not so sure. She has different ideas of how she might want to spend her future, and she may not go to college. But yet, I kind of like you said, parents I think have their own idea, and we kind of saved for that. Just the same, we wanted to provide equal opportunities for both our children. So in this situation, I'm really fascinated. Like, how do you handle helping the parents in particular? Realign their expectations because ultimately it really isn't their choice.
It ultimately isn't their choice. And I think that's the hardest part, right? My daughter, my oldest daughter, she will say she's my first pancake. Because your first pancake's your practice pancake, right? You're probably gonna throw that one out. We didn't throw her out. She's fantastic. But we had a lot of expectations for her. We did. We thought, this is how we're gonna raise her, this is what we're gonna do. And then she wanted something else. And so we had to come around to how are we going to support our kids' dreams, not just our dreams for them, and realizing that finance in America is really different. The tools that worked for you and I when we were kids, what were we told about finances? Get a really good job, max out your 401k, save as much as you can, close your eyes, it's going to be okay. Okay, that doesn't work for our kids, and it's not going to work for our kids. Let's just be really, really clear about that. Expenses, the average home 25 years ago was $169,000. That was the national average. National average for a home today is over $500,000. The average salary 25 years ago was $40,000. The average salary today, any guess? The average salary today?
Oh, average salary? Oh, probably,
Average
yeah.
national.
I would guess something around 150, something like that.
$65,000.
Okay, that's that's
That's
a
our
good check.
Yeah. So when you look at just a housing cost has more than tripled. Our national debt has more than tripled, and our salary average up by 25%. The
Yeah,
tools that worked for us are not going to work. That system is broken for our kids. And you know what? They know it. If you talk to kids, my 20-year-old, my 22-year-old, my 25-year-old, they know
yeah.
this is broken for me. I'm behind the eight ball already and I haven't even started. They know that. And so part of the conversation is talking to kids about you don't have to be behind the eight ball. There are tools you can use, but also mom and dad, that is a gut check. The tools that worked for you and me, having three jobs, ramen, Mountain Dew, college, we do it, we get a good job. It's not going to work for our kids. It doesn't work that way unless they're going to be a doctor. And then now we're talking about real debt, right? Or a lawyer. Again, now we're talking about real debt, not just your average 4-year degree. So creating a plan synergistically first with your child and then your financial advisor and saying, where do we go with this? How do we do this to create the best foundation for our child? Because the financial system in America is not going to do it. It's not going to do it for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it just means like we all have to take this very seriously, right? If the system is like that, we all have to do what we can to understand the tools available to us to do the best we can for ourselves and for our children. So let me ask you then, because I mean, I can't imagine what the solution is if we can't make jobs pay a fair wage outside of continuing to put pressure on, local and federal levels to pay better wages. But when it comes to what we have in control of, it's going to probably come to borrowing, right? If you just don't have those higher income cash flow coming in to be able to just take that bill on because those tuition costs are going up. So if debt is part of what the default is now, what are the smarter ways that people need to take this on? What resources should they look at maybe before taking a loan? And if they have to take a loan, what should they be looking at there?
I mean, I think your comment about Pell Grants at the beginning was brilliant. Pell Grants are underutilized to a great degree. So first and foremost, let's focus on preparing, and that preparation should start honestly in eighth and ninth grade. Preparing for scholarships, creating your student's resume. If you have a student that wants to go to college, colleges want motivated, qualified students. So if you start building that student resume, and I'm not talking about in a tiger mom kind of way, all my kids will verify I was not a tiger mom at all. Like I didn't do it that way. My goal was to let's figure out what you want to do, what do you love in life, and let's wear that for a while because you're probably going to change your mind, and that's okay. That's all good. Um, so first you plan on, work with your child to create a plan. What do we think we want to do? Creating that student resume is a big deal. Maximizing Pell Grants, scholarships, first and foremost. And then if you're looking at debt, that should be your really your last solution. You have some really tax advantaged ways to save, and ideally we're going to save something between our student and ourselves. We're going to save for college. So on that score, we really have like three options, right? And one gets a little bit of a bad rap, but I'm going to mention it anyway because I'm a fan. It's what I use for my kids. You have the 529 plan. So in a 529 plan, we can save for our kids. We generally put that in a market-based solution, maybe a mutual fund, something safe but aligned we have. We can add a significant amount of money to that, right? Up to $19,000 for a married couple, sometimes higher, up to $138,000 in a year if we're catching up, depending on our income. 529 plan is a great way to start. That's one option. Now, keep in mind that that is a parental asset. So almost 6% of that will count against your student on their FAFSA form. So when it comes to financial aid, your 529 plan is going to count against them. Not to a great degree, but it will. Counts it's more heavily weighted. So you need to look at those things. The other thing is it can only be utilized for college education. So if you have students like my kids where they're like, no, Mom, I'm going to be a web designer. I have a son who's a very successful web designer. If you look at my website, he made mine, just plug for my son. He did a great job, but he didn't go to college for that, right? So what am I going to do with his 529 money? That's a consideration.
Yeah, yeah. I actually am a fan of the 529 because of it allows me to invest the money for one, the tax advantage it offers. I know there's limits and things, but we talk about that on the show that starting early is your best strategy here. And so don't wait and make this a problem for
Yes.
yourself. Stop starter. And my son is also coincidentally a fantastic designer. He did all my website as well and my book art and everything. And he decided he did want to go to college, and we wanted that for him because of the college experience, as well as hopefully that increases his income earning ability. But for me, I remember thinking back then when I was looking at the 529s that if things don't go that way, because I get to set a beneficiary, I do have another kid. And if I had to, I could rename the beneficiary so the
Right.
money could still go somewhere. And then they added the rule where you could actually turn it into a retirement account for the kid as well, which is a newer thing, I think, just maybe about 2 years ago now. So things like that allows the
Mhm.
money to be a little more flexible. And I feel like you can have at least a plan B and plan C. So it does seem like a 529 is a good path. And also with the Pell Grant money, really quick, it's $3 billion went unused. $3 billion a year. Like that's a lot just because kids and parents did not fill a FAFSA out. So I feel like there's a lack of education maybe. And is this kind of what you're finding is like they just don't know about the 529s, they don't know about the FAFSA, or is there some other barrier blocking people?
I mean, I think we all know it. Most of us are going to know about the FAFSA, right? We know you have to apply for financial aid. But how to do it and how to prepare for it, sometimes we don't know the right questions to ask. And when you're talking about solutions like the 529, and there is much more flexibility there now than there ever has been, being able to convert that into a retirement account, being able to change the beneficiary, it's a brilliant strategy. You also have the Coverdell, right? You have a Coverdell, you can put less into that. You're limited to $2,000 a year, but for parents who are not, um, not wanting to put $19,000, put massive amounts into their kids' college education, it's a way to, okay, well, we've got something. We're gonna contribute something, still have the parental asset, you still have qualification. I'm going to tell you one thing that concerns me about 529 plans and Coverdell plans right now is that if I look at the financial atmosphere overall, well, so let's say for your 15-year-old, the market right now, I mean, let's just be honest, between you and I, it's a little rodeo. It's a little bit of a rodeo these
Yeah.
days, right? The market can go straight to the moon and then somebody says the wrong thing and it's Chicken Little. So what does that mean for the safety of what we're putting into a market-based solution? I think that's something to be aware of, even for children who are much younger. So now I have a client right now who is, they have a grandchild that they want to plan for. Is newborn. So we have 18 years, which is awesome. We have a lot to plan, a lot of time to work with, but I also think we need to be more financial from a 1,000 foot overview, more aware of the fact that it's been 16 years since our last major market correction, right? So our last major market correction was in 2008. We had a little dip in COVID, right? And we were back in 3 months higher than we were before. We had a little dip in 2022, but nothing that would count in economic cycles as a major market correction. Should happen about every decade. We're a little overcooked. Now, does that mean it's going to happen next year? No, I have no idea when it's going to happen, but I think it's going to eventually. So we need to think about that because we have a very limited time frame with our kids. So we need to be protecting those assets and not planning for any market volatility that's going to be there.
Absolutely on that. It's on my mind maybe way too much. And I know with our my strategy was to kind of do a glide path investing in the 529 accounts where on better years, a little bit more risk is okay. But as you get closer to their target age, kind of falling back to more conservative bond cash level positions or things that will protect those assets because you want to secure what your gains and make sure it's available for them.
Right. I think that is exactly what you need to do is monitor your time frame and be aware of what the market is doing. The rodeo is not going to stop with this administration. I love them or hate them. It doesn't. I'm a all the politicians kind of girl. So it doesn't matter to me if you're a fan or not a fan. But the volatility is not going to stop with this particular administration. It's going to be this that we've experienced the last year for the next three. That's just what we're in for as far as I can see. Now, there is one tool that many people don't, and I think there's a slight bias against it, but there are some unique strategies to potentially using an indexed universal life policy for college planning. Now, I have a lot of clients that will come to me and say, I don't know how it works. I don't really care. It's life insurance. I'm not interested. However, in our day to day, protecting a child's insurability is important. In our world of ADHD and our kids being medicated, that can have a long-term impact on their insurability, which doesn't have anything to do with college. But here's where college comes in. With an indexed universal life policy, you still have the same, you have to count the cash value as an asset. But what's really important about that particular strategy is that particular solution allows you to lock in gains. You're protected against any loss. So if the market, like right now, I have clients who are locking in double-digit rates of return for the next 12 months in a market where markets are going way up and way down. Now they know for sure this year, this is what I'm getting. That's a brilliant solution. But more than that, the thing that makes this solution, this is the solution I used for my children, even though I could have done other things. Um, Indexed universal life policies allow you to do what's called a non-direct recognition loan, which means when your child gets to be college age and you've saved and planned and engineered the policy appropriately to provide for that, your child can take a loan against that policy, pay for their college, but it's actually the cash value is used as collateral for that loan. So if your child, as an example, has $50,000 in their life insurance policy and they take out a loan against it, the entire $50,000 stays in that policy, earning interest that you can lock in. Not always as high as we have it right now. On average, we're going to be around 6%. This year is exceptionally good, but it's still the entire amount is still earning interest versus now we've spent it, now it's gone. So then when you start making repayments as your child comes out of college, the child then makes their student loan payments back into their own program. I have clients that are then using that same policy again. Now we're buying our first house. Now we're paying for our wedding. Now we're planning for retirement through this same set of money that started when we were born. So that for me as a mother of many was really important to me because I didn't come from wealth, right? I didn't come from a silver spoon. And I can tell you, although I love market-based plans and I utilize them for myself, for my children as they get older, what was important to me first of all was that I know contractually guaranteed they're going to be good. They're not going to struggle like I did. They're not going to, because I know, like I have a contract, not an account. And that difference between a contract and an account is sometimes overlooked, as well as the power of a non-direct recognition loan and collateralizing, self-funding your college. That's a way to not have debt that I think many, many people overlook.
I'm glad you brought that up because I think there's kind of the traditional things that people think about, but there are more and more what I would call alternative approaches that I see people planning that go beyond traditional savings and grants. because I know nearly 40% of students now attend community colleges, for example, just to cut the cost of a 4-year degree in half. That's a big move I know people have started to do, but also work study programs, employer tuition assistance, and even just merit scholarships that aren't even tied to financial need. There's a lot of potential things out there, I think, and people just need to kind of look around and see like what works best for what we're trying to accomplish. So let me ask this though: how do you recommend parents involve their kids in all this? Because this is not just up to us to do. Our kids need to have some role in how they fund their education, right?
I think there's two ways to do it, two ways that I did with my kids. Number one, I will tell you, so all my kids are millennial Gen Z kids, and they do know, like my adult children know the financial deck is stacked against them. So when I sat down with them, and I did for all of them, when they turned 18, I had plans for them. And then I sat down with him and said, this is what I have done for you. You're not married. You don't have children. You don't have a home. You don't have bills, but you do have a job. And now you are going to take this over. This is what you have. This is how we can utilize it. But I involved them in their own financial planning, saying, hey, if we utilize these alternative strategies, this is how you can utilize it all the way to retirement. And oh, by the way, pay less taxes as well. So that's one thing, talking to your kids about what they want to do with their life when my youngest is 14. She wants to be an EMS. She wants to be an emergency services tech and also a hairdresser. This she thinks they go together. She
Nice.
hasn't decided which way she wants to go. Both. That's what she wants to do. Both. But talking to them about what do you want to be an engineer? Do you want to be a doctor? Do you want to do these things? And then not only looking at alternative financing strategies, but alternative education strategies. My kids that did go to a traditional university, one of the things that we took advantage of that I think many parents don't was CLEP testing. So in high school, your first 2 years of college are really basically redoing high school. You're taking all of those same classes again, and you're paying college rates for it, right? So you can take CLEP tests and DSST tests. My kids almost finished their bachelor's degree before they finished high school because they were able to take the classes they were taking in high school, take the proficiency exam through CLEP, and get college credit to do it. My kids that were motivated to do that were like, hey, why pay again college rates for what I'm learning right now? It allowed them to go to college and really focus on what they wanted to do instead of what they had to do, right? We have our basic, you have to take these requirements. Well, they didn't have to take those because they got it done in high school. So if you have a motivated child who says, hey, I want to be a doctor, I want to be an engineer, I want to be an attorney, okay, great. We know we're signing up for a longer education period. We know we're signing on for a bigger investment. How can we minimize what we can by getting it done in high school? And your more
Yeah.
motivated kids will do that.
That's a great one. We have this program called Running Start in my area, which is basically, high school kids going to a local community college part time during their kind of junior and senior years to get a huge head start, huge financial savings. My son did not decide to do that, but he really leaned into getting as many AP credits as he could, and that really paid off really well for him. He's taking a lot less college class now, and just a lot less load for him, which is great. I want to ask you as we wrap up here, though, like if there's a family listening today and they wanted to take some action this week, what would you tell them they should be doing right now, especially if they're worrying about the market and the rising costs and everything? Like, what's the big one, two, or three things they should start doing?
First things first, talk to your child. And remember that their dreams might not be your dreams, but the dreams you create together are the best dreams. So first, talk to your child, assuming they're of middle school to high school age. Secondly, remember that financial tools are just that. They're just tools. I say to my clients all the time, tools like a hammer. Let's just face it, you could kill somebody with a hammer, or you could build a mansion. How the tool is utilized is what matters, whether that's a mutual fund, a 529 plan, a Coverdell account, an indexed universal life policy. Remember, these are just they're tools, and picking the best one that gives you the flexibility and assets that you need, that's the most important part, not necessarily the tool. Then meet with your child. Once you and your child have said, hey, and let's face it, your kid is gonna maybe is like mine. I want to be a hairdresser and I want to go into medical too, mom. Both. Yes. Okay. Well, big difference in investment, big difference in, we have ambitious children, some of them. So saying, okay, how can we work on this together? How can we wear that for a while? Looking at your own financial plan, right? I talk to my clients a lot about airline safety, right? Put your own air mask on before you help your child. Do you have your own financial house in order? Talk to your child about your dreams. Get your own financial house in order. What's your debt situation? What are you able to put away? How are you planning for your financial future? Put your own mask on first, and then say, now that I have that straight, what's the best way? What's my risk tolerance, right? If my child is going to college in 4 years and I know we're 16 years past the last major market correction, am I comfortable with that? If I put $50,000 away for my child's college education, and because interest rates went up and bond rates went down, my account drops by 13%. Am I comfortable with that? Am I okay? Because that's what happened in 2022, right? Bond funds on average dropped by 13%. Am I okay with that? Do I feel good? Do I feel good if I have it in a growth-based portfolio and I take a loss? Am I okay with that because I have enough time? It could be a great strategy. I have lots of clients who are in market-based strategies, and we're planning for that because we have time. Get your own financial house in order, and then plan accordingly to what your risk tolerance is.
I love that so much. I think a lot of what you said there resonates with me, and I'm sure it will with others, because so much of what this comes down to is really looking at that bigger picture. And it's not necessarily sacrificing for our children as much as it is planning with our children so that we can get still to our goal by having that really amazing milestone along the way, which is, you brought this life into the world, you raised them to adulthood, you gave them every opportunity that you could possibly give them to succeed. And it's like any other investment, right? We're investing our time, we're investing our resources, we're investing our love into this so that it can, continue to, thrive forevermore. And I think that's the way I look at it. I hope others realize, we can do this, even though it's difficult. I think the system does make it very, very difficult, but there are tools out there. And the first thing is education. Educate yourself so you can educate your children. So to take out a lot of the friction from the journey, because there can be quite a bit.
Right. Absolutely. Having children is an adventure. Having 7 of my own, I will tell you, I had 2 children, and if I would have just stopped there, I would have been the perfect parent. I'm telling you, I was such a good mom. And then I had 2 more, and I realized that maybe God isn't real, or at least he doesn't love me. So I had to have 3 more to just like balance the scales. I'm okay. I'm right in the middle of the road. I'm a good mom. I'm not the best. I'm not the worst, but I had 7. So the kids aren't the same. They're not cookie cutter little humans. They're really not, even though they're all raised in the same home.
Yeah.
So buying into them and their dream, it so matters. It matters long term for their financial future and their entire future, actually.
Love that. I think our children will humble us. they will make sure we understand they are unique from each other. They will go out of their way to do that. And so not one plan can work for all. We have to be able to personalize it. Well, thank you so much, Rebecca, for being here with us today. I really enjoyed this conversation. I know our listeners will as well. How can the listeners connect with you?
Best way to catch up with me is on my website, Blue Skye Financial, and that's Sky with an E. So maybe the next time we talk, I'll tell you the story of Blue Skye. But if you look at the About section, you'll see the whole story. We named it Blue Skye after one of my daughters. So Blue Skye Financial, blue like the color, SKYE, and then financial.com. And just pick a college consultation, and I would be happy to connect and really kind of walk through the process. And everything we do for consultations is free of charge. So would be happy to just sit down with another parent and say, there's a way to get there from here. Wherever you're starting, we can get there from here. It just takes a little planning.
Fantastic. Thanks again, Rebecca.
Absolutely. Thank you.
My conversation with Rebecca really opened my eyes to the point that planning isn't really a solo activity that us as parents really should be taking on our own. It is definitely something we need to think about. It's an expense like any other major life event that's going to happen, but it's really something that we need to bring our children into, make sure we're talking to our significant others and really just planning accordingly. Because if you're the one in the family making the financial decisions, you're likely doing so with the best intent. You're balancing your own goals with what you're trying to provide for your dependents, and that's wonderful. But without data, it can be very difficult to make good decisions. So conversations with our children is key. And having 2 kids of my own, I know that what they say they want to do with their lives is going to change. They change their mind. My daughter in particular, she at one time thought she was going to be an actress, the next time a gymnast, then a professional horseback rider, military, the nursing, many different ideas. And this is because children can be multifaceted as they chase their dreams. And that's wonderful, but it can be really difficult for a financial plan. But like any other risk, we can actually mitigate things by trying to find ways to come up with contingencies. When it comes to our own children's future, knowing that we have a general idea of what we want to fund is good enough. You might not feel great about putting boundaries or limits on what you want to provide for your children, but it is a really healthy thing to do, especially when it's supported with a conversation. I know with my kids, I was really clear. I'm going to help you with your college, but there are limits. Your mother and I, we're saving. We're going to save enough money to cover all of your tuition costs if you go to school in state, if you do a public university. Now, many of you might think, well, I'm going to go with a private university. I don't want to limit my child in state. Maybe you moved. Maybe you want them to go to an alma mater. All good. And that is just something that you work into the plan. Knowing what the cost is, you can use the strategy to hit your goals, maybe starting earlier. Maybe you have a higher risk tolerance. Maybe you can make moves to use an insurance policy like Rebecca covered, or maybe you'll find out from your kids that actually they're not as interested in some of these expensive things that we're planning for them, and therefore, okay, still save for it, but know it's something you can turn into something else. Maybe change a beneficiary, maybe turn into a retirement account. These are great contingencies, and all they're doing is allowing us to have those plan Bs or plan Cs ready for the day where we have a decision coming to us, a decision which isn't ultimately our own, but is that of our children's. And when they decide what they want to do, knowing that we've done what we can to support that, help them chase their dreams, that's huge. That's something that we can move forward without regrets. We can feel good. Our children can feel good. Hopefully, we'll have those future conversations where they come back and appreciate us for what we did for them. And then they can help us in turn. Because that's what this is all about. It's helping family and knowing that someone will be around to help you when you need help down the line. So I hope you enjoyed today's conversation with Rebecca. All the information you need to connect with her is in the show notes. And of course, I want to hear from you. How do you feel about your financial goals when it comes to providing for your dependents' futures? Have you made any big moves that you think could help others? Thank you for listening today. Best of luck saving for that future for both yourself and for your loved ones, and escaping the clock. I'll talk to you next time. Thanks for tuning in to this episode. Remember, while I'm not yet a financial planner, I am getting my degree in wealth management. You should take anything you've heard here as tips and advice to making your plan. To learn more, visit www.escapetheclock.com. There, you can find the book, resources, including the planner, and you can even schedule time with me. Please remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time.